clean and green opportunities, CO2 is one of the best, I say. You can also use like food grade ethanol, but it's so expensive, but you still have the problems with the large carbon footprint. You still have the problem with the large, you don't have the residual problem, but you do have the large carbon footprint problem. So I think those are the main answers, and the impacts of those are huge. Like, for example.
Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials. So for those of you that are out there, please drop a note. Let us know that you're here. Say hello. I saw my computer actually just turned on with this same interview, so I better turn it off before we hear both of us talking.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm excited to be here today. For those of you that are not aware, we just launched a new community platform, hemphallway.com. Globalhempassociation.org will also be redirected to that Hemp Hallway, but it's an awesome platform where you can connect, find content, join meetings, join forums, discussions, post jobs, and everything. So please log in hemphallway.com or globalhempassociation.org and request an invitation. So
they always put me out in the hallway. I don't know why. that brings me back to being in kindergarten and saying, "Oh, you go out in the hallway, young child."
That's why I labeled it. That's why I made it Hemp Hallways, because that's where we all go out to talk, right?
Yes, exactly. Or have a smoke or whatever. Oh, we don't do that anymore. Sorry.
Hey, we are in the hemp industry.
Yeah, we are. Smoking's still allowed, and encouraged.
That's awesome. Well, with that being said, do you mind giving a quick intro? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, how'd you get into this? What are you doing now?
Sure. All right. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, all the goodies. Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot of people want to know, how do you get into it? How do you get started? Mandi, you have kind of an entrepreneurial bent to you. And I think that's something that you grow up with. I didn't come from a family that had any entrepreneurial aspects in terms of business or anything like that. But I decided I wanted to get into chemistry very early on. And I decided, I became a chemist and I did some biochemistry. I did a doctorate in what they call analytical chemistry with an emphasis on separation science. So I really like the hands-on aspect of it. We're building systems using, doing high pressure, and we did high temperature separations and things like that. So a lot of the chemical engineering that I got involved in very early on in my career. And basically, I haven't left that in over 22 years now, doing that exact same thing, essentially doing separations of various kinds, whether it's bulk separations or, I worked for corporate America for quite some time. And I don't know if the audience, if you guys have ever worked for corporate America, or maybe some of you are in corporate America, it's totally different than entrepreneurs, right? The way we roll, it's totally different. I mean, we're hitting the ground running early in the morning. We work late. You got to have your head and your heart into it. Otherwise it's not going to work. And so, I've been doing that now since 2009 and, ended up starting my own company. And that was interesting because it was a lot of fun, Mandi. I mean, we had what they called welfare for PhDs. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Yeah, they have that actually. So if you're a PhD, you can get welfare. And I was on the welfare program of the National Institutes of Health, and I had National Science Foundation, NASA, and also the United States Air Force. We were doing all kinds of, sensors and work and separations and things like that. So that's what we did for them. And that kind of led us into, building equipment in 2015, 2014 for one of the one of the very early multi-state operators called Vireo Health. I was, say, co-founder of that, I guess, if you will. We wrote licenses in Minnesota as a team together, and one of the 2 in Minnesota, one of the 5 in New York, and then spent a lot of time just, basically, helping them build their facilities, getting them up and running with all their formulations and everything. And that kind of launched us into Canada. United Science, my company, launched into Canada. And since that time, we built all kinds of equipment and serviced all kinds of customers. Some of the largest customers in the world that are in cannabis are our customers. And very early on, I remember working in Canada in a shipping container. That was one of the very first units that we did. It was crazy. It was up in Gatineau, Ontario, or Ottawa. And if you guys know anything about that company, they're a very large company, Hexo, right now. And that was one of our flagship customers. We also serviced a lot of the old companies. And we basically did extraction, we did distillation, we did software, and we put out a whole bunch of products that are basically meant to really provide a full solution to customers, including consulting and engineering drawings and things like that. So that's how we got started, and that's really what we do right now, Mandy.
Huh. So you've had quite the road. First of all, I went down a little path of the chemistry. I've got a minor in chemistry and stop at organic chemistry too.
Okay. Hard stop. We're not going to do it anymore.
I tried twice.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's all right. It's all good.
So I'm impressed. But I've loved to hear how the science has come into this industry and how it really evolved the industry. Can you kind of talk real quick, like what have you seen and where do you see the industry opportunities really opening up over the next couple of years or in the future?
Yeah, I think materials chemistry is going to be huge. Okay. And I think just like it is in any industry, when you have whether you're talking about a fiber or you're talking about a material that comes from a natural source, there's always opportunities for conversion. There's opportunities for using the properties of those to get different things. Also, the medicinal benefits are also going to be very, very huge. Just the medicinal benefits of the plant, not just in the, everybody knows about the cannabinoids, but there's also flavonoids. There's lipids of various kinds that are very beneficial for, people who want to really do the research, show what the indication that it applies to, and then actually go do some new drug applications or something like that. We've shown in the marketplace that is really the way to make a tremendous amount of money. And I know that a lot of our international customers are doing just that. They're looking at it from a very scientific approach, putting together, new drug applications that are specific. So instead of just looking at, say, Dravet syndrome or epilepsy, they're looking at PTSD. They're looking at other aspects. A lot of people are melding those two together, psychedelics, along with some of the endocannabinoid system drugs that would be taken via the plant. So, it really is a two-edged sword. I mean, we all want to be scientific, but at the same time, in the meantime, you really do need the recreational markets to fund the scientific efforts of a lot of these companies because of the federal legality of it and all of that. So there's all kinds of it's a very interesting market.
It's fascinating you just said that we need the recreational market to fund these research products, right?
Right.
And I thought Jared just put a nose in one of the comments, the sniff test, right? I hear all the time in this industry that, using our nose, and I don't even know if this is what he is referring to, but definitely what I'm referring or going to bring up is that's the piece that is science or a part of the science that then we now need the research to back up what we know or what we think.
Yeah. And there's lots of it out there. A lot of times it's just compiling the research that's out there and then bringing it to a more clinical setting. So I think that's all. There's tremendous amount of opportunities. Also, in terms of the market, Mandy, You have the basis of the market really from a consumer standpoint is the healthy living marketplace. Okay, and there's lots of very good reports that are written out there. Compound annual growth rates for those are in the 20 to 30%. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for those people who want to use botanicals and create healthy living products. Okay, and that's really where the opportunity lies. Maybe it's not in the tincture, and maybe it is. A lot of people make a lot of money on tinctures, so don't. I'm not gonna say that tinctures are not the way to go, but a lot of people do tinctures. You know what I mean? So because they're easy to do, and you can hopefully don't do them in your bathtub, but or in your kitchen sink. A lot of people do. That's the problem too.
And there's a lot of consumers that understand the tincture, right?
Yeah.
They understand what it looks like, so it's an easy sell. People pick it up. It's something they're familiar with. They know it makes a big difference. Right. And I'm with you that, so I would say probably one of the biggest changes that I have seen as the industry has evolved is we're starting to see more science and therefore less of this bad practice of making it in our bathtub or in our kitchen sink.
Yeah, I would say that that's more prevalent outside the U.S. than inside the U.S. I think the U.S. is right now, from what I can tell, the recreational market. There's a lot of it's almost in the culture, the counterculture, right? It's almost in the culture of just getting it done and whatever. Outside the U.S., we're talking about applying pharmaceutical grade GMP processes. We start off with full on commissioning and qualification, all that stuff. It's just it's a different level, and that goes for Canada and in Europe and in South and Central America, even in Africa. It's just a different story. The U.S., we, for better or for worse, we've kind of legalized it as an agricultural product. And so, a lot of people thought they were going to make a lot of money off of it, doing growing stuff, and then found out that they didn't need to grow so much. But at the end of the day, they certainly, there still is that, and that's actually great for consumer markets. I mean, you have cosmetics, you have various pain medications that come out of that. You have flavor and aroma chemistries that come out of that. All of that stuff. So I'm really excited. I'm very bullish on the market. Nothing really has changed in terms of when they've updated the market reports. We're still looking at 20 to 30% compound annual growth rate for the next 4 or 5 years. That's a lot of money, over $47 billion of money to be basically, gained and harvested. And this is talking about consumer products. So, all boats rise with the tide. And it's only limited by your creativity. So go for it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Your numbers just kind of knocked me like, it's just a reminder, right? I say it all the time, and it's another reminder that it's here to stay. It's not going away. And the opportunity is huge. And here we're presenting education and tools to get people the knowledge that they need, or get them connected to resources that they need, so that they can take advantage of this opportunity.
Exactly.
Okay, so you made a comment yesterday that was really interesting to me when we were talking about the energy sector and how extraction is perfectly fit for that. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? And then I want to merge over or talk about ESG and sustainability within the industry.
Yeah, well, meaning the energy sector, meaning specifically on the environmental sustainability side. Is that what you mean by that?
Oh, well, so I have a question on both sides. When we talk about bridging the gap for the oil and gas industry and being able to utilize the extraction in that industry, is that what you were referring to yesterday?
Well, that there are extraction processes within that. And in my view, you have the old school and the new school. And, the old school, basically, it's very hard once, a large facility is made, it's very hard to get off that process because you're talking about multiple millions of dollars. So people are still continuing to, use extraction. But I think that with the new sustainability wave, that's what I think is the next generation. And hopefully we can get over that. And that applies to all industries. It applies to food. Like for example, like soy, for example, all the soy in the whole entire world is extracted with hexane. Well, it has hexane residuals in there, and people are using the meal, they're using the oils, and they have all. And the FDA says it's okay to have 500 parts per million of hexane in there, but a lot of people say, oh, well, there is not that amount, but there could be that amount, and there are always residuals, and so that's something that is changing in the marketplace in terms of applying clean and green extraction processes to that. So yeah.
Okay, so you touched on a lot of topics that I've got.
Yeah, I did. We can unpack all that.
Yeah, would you mind? Yeah, the social, economic, and governance. Talk to me about how does this play a role in the cannabis industry and specifically?
Yeah. So So the ESG is what that's known in the investing world, and basically the whole idea behind it is that if you have governance around continuously improving a company's or their environmental footprint or their social gravitas, that there needs to be basically a process and a governance around that, so that the companies can move from being what they are right now, current state, to a future state, which is even better, right? Why have a huge carbon footprint, for example? Why belch, hundreds of metric tons of
methane
VOCs into the smog producing VOCs into the air? Okay, why do that? Okay, when you can improve and change things. So the ESG really is that, and it's kind of been put out by the S&P 500. You can look it up. There's all kinds of metrics. What we've done at United Science is we've really applied that to the hemp industry and also to the cannabis industry by extension for operating facilities. And we found some very, very interesting aspects to that sustainability figures. So I mean, specifically related to the extraction side of it.
Okay, what is it? Can you share some of that? Some of them, what you found?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, what we found basically is, I'll give you an example. This right here is a 1 gram pen. This particular 1 gram pen was derived with ethanol, an ethanol extraction process. Okay, can you guess how much CO2 this cost the environment? This 1 gram pen. It's 95 pounds worth of CO2. That's not including the VOC, which is volatile organic compounds, which are smog producing, and not including the waste, which was it's hazardous waste. So if you have an exact same pen, and you have a CO2 derived oil into it, how much do you think that costs the environment?
I have
1/4 pound.
Less than
1/4 pound. So you're looking at, it's totally not even in the same ballpark. And in terms of the environmental impact and the environmental footprint, and that goes right back to, first of all, like ethanol, for example, to create ethanol itself is about 195,000 BTUs per gallon to basically produce the stuff. Okay, then you're using it and you're losing it, and it's evaporating and it's being pumped out into the atmosphere, which is called VOC. Ethanol itself is smog producing. So you have issues, and then also you're heating up that ethanol to vaporization temperatures and bring it down to -40. You do that 50 times a day. Okay, that's very high energy. So you have all of those things kind of in a confluence, really giving the ethanol environments a very, very high carbon footprint, very high VOC footprint. And then you can't just use the ethanol again and again and again and again forever, right? It gets janky. Okay, it's not good. In fact, there's rules in the FDA puts out rules how many times you can use it, right? You have to have a criteria by which you would reuse it, and so on and so forth. So, that's one thing you need to think about. You can't just reuse it until it goes away forever, right? So, The issue there is you have to replace it. And then when you replace it, what do you do with the old janky oil? Well, you have to manifest it. That's waste. What do? Well, they incinerate it. That's greenhouse gas, right? And then when you're not quite getting all the ethanol out of the product when you're processing it, right? So some of that then is brought outside to outgas. That's what they call outgas. They put it in the sun and they let it outgas. Well, where does all that ethanol go? It goes up into the atmosphere, and that's smog. So smog producing. So there's all of these things that people really need to think about when they're looking at and trying to understand sustainability within their operation. And we have a service that we do. If someone wants to, get a service, what we'll do is we'll go in there. We'll do a current state, future state for them and say, hey, look, here's some processes. Here's the main contributors to your overall greenhouse gas. And then we also certify and stamp and say, hey, you're doing really great to the ones who are doing great. So with a little clean green CO2, stamp. So people are looking to do those types of assessments. And Wall Street's looking, and investors are looking to do those types of assessments because they want to be able to quantify what the effect and what it really is. So that's where science, comes into this, right?
Well, we for sure. One of the biggest discussions that comes up all the time is the capital coming into the industry and how many businesses need capital, right? We did a discussion not too long ago all about ESG, and some numbers were dropped that were just astonishing to me about the amount of money that's being invested in ESG compared to other investments that are not involving the ESG numbers or I guess system grading. I don't know how you get a score, an ESG score of something.
Yeah, you get a score. Yeah. I mean, so environmental sustainability, so something along those lines. So ISO 14000 is basically describes a process which is called the life cycle process by which you can evaluate your operation, and we use that process. In Europe, they have the environmental sustainability annex, basically, which is the laws that went into effect in the early 2000s related to that. So there's a whole carbon cap and trade aspect to this as well. You also have carbon oxide, in the U.S. carbon oxide, credits. So if you're able to articulate and you can put measurements in place to say, hey, look, this is all the CO2 that we've saved. There's at the very minimum credits for you in the U.S. There's also credits also in Europe, which is those are things that people really need to be thinking about. If you're going to put out an operation and have a huge carbon footprint, like an ethanol operation. I mean, it's very well known in the chemical literature and the chemical engineering literature. It's all that's very well known. High amounts of carbon footprint, high environmental impact, high community impact, basically because people don't want to have a bunch of, solvent around them, huge amounts of solvent,
right.
And so it's, yes. So I think that a general trend that you have not only in the investing side, but the general trend of, hey, look, we can't just continue to, destroy our planet. Aren't we supposed to be, saving the planet by growing hemp and things like that? And then they're just, I don't know. So that's kind of the idea there. And, I think that it's really taking off. We have several people who are, like in the Europe especially, that are really interested in this from the EU regulatory side. Mm-hmm. And so they want to be able to, kind of reduce that footprint. And, smog is a real big deal. I mean, I would say that California right now is the number one ethanol extracting state in the union. And they also have the highest smog problem, the largest smog problem. I'm just guessing. Okay. Those things, I made up all of that. But if you want to have more of less of an environmental footprint, then that's something you need to think about. And your investors care about it. You should be able to articulate that. We help you articulate that. So, right? I mean, because they're getting the investment dollars.
Well, and right now, the consumer cares. We've seen this massive shift in where the dollar is going, and really it's going to where they understand how it's made, what the impact is, what the environmental impact is, how people are being treated along the process. It really is for the first time, consumer driven.
Right. And I mean, that's why I brought it down to like a pen.
Yeah.
Because people can understand that. Okay, my 1 gram pen costs the environment 95 pounds of CO2 plus VOC plus toxic waste plus whatever, as opposed to 1/4 pound. I mean, the engineers, the chemical engineers they have big compendium of sustainable engineering practices that they've written about for the last 20, 30 years. It's all well known in the literature. It's just, sometimes people, the consumers don't really become aware of it until it's kind of brought up and said, okay, hey, look, this is a real investment strategy that we have. So I think that'll also go for public companies. There's a lot of hemp companies that are going public, either on the OTC. Sometimes they go to pink sheets, or they do reverse merger or whatever, and they go public in some sort of way. If you have a strategy that says, hey, we have a consumer noticeable advantage over everybody else out there because our brand is not contributing to the environment like everybody else's is. Mm-hmm. That's something really big. I think that's a very consumer noticeable item.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. There was a question brought up from one of our LinkedIn listeners. I don't know if it's Kayla by chance, because I saw she posted earlier, but her comment didn't come through. So if it is, hello, and thank you for joining. But how do you feel about butane and hexane extraction? And then that was followed up by what are their impacts?
Yeah, so butane, I haven't done the actual math on butane yet because I don't know the volumes and stuff like that. I've been dealing primarily with condensed liquids versus CO2, which is a compressed liquid. But butane would have similar. It would be a similar volatile organic compound, VOC. So you have all those wonderful vacuum ovens out there pumping out literally tons of residual, non-recovered butane and propane out into the atmosphere. I just don't have a way to quantify it at the moment. Hexane, I am an anti-hexane guy. Okay, first of all, it's toxic. Okay, and you always have residuals. And the FDA basically changed their rules where you used to be able to have 5,000 parts per million residual, which is crazy in like finished pharmaceuticals. They switched it from 5,000 to 500, put it in a different class of solvents because of the known toxicities that and they're finding out more and more stuff. So I would say that if your goal is to not stop sucking down solvents, and at some point in time we're going to have to stop doing that, you really should be implementing clean and green opportunities. CO2 is one of the best, I say. You can also use food grade ethanol, but it's so expensive, but you still have the problems with the large carbon footprint. You still have the problem with the large, you don't have the residual problem, but you do have the large carbon footprint problem. So I think those are the main answers, and the impacts of those are huge. Like, for example, almost all the soy in all the world is basically processed with hexane. Horrible. Okay. We seem to be in like an epidemic of cancer and all that stuff. And like everybody knows that has touched us in one way or another. Just a number of people. And we have a continuous diet of residuals in our foodstuffs and things like that we don't really know the impact of very well. And it's time to really look at the processes, and if they can be avoided, they should be avoided. And if you don't have to use hexane, if you don't have to use butane, don't use it. I mean, butane's explosion. You have explosion hazards there too, and that's well known. And we've all seen in the papers, that's occurred. CO2 won't explode, or CO2 doesn't even burn. In fact, you use it to put out fires. So things like that. So I think that, as awareness grows, from the consumer side, we do see this trend towards healthy living, like I said, which is that 30% compounded growth rate. So if you can articulate and say, hey, look, we have a very low impact on the environment, the way we do things here. We have, and this is how we roll. That's going to be better for your investors, and it's also going to be better for the consumers. What do you think of that, Mandi?
Yes, exactly. Well, and there's so many comments that come in, and this is something I think that if consumers only knew, right? Consumers just, someone said the other day, my grandma assumes that going into the grocery store and buying CBD from the grocery store means it's good, or it's well made. And the understanding that, how is it made and what chemicals are in it? And if there isn't the oversight that's necessary, like there is on a can of soup, to know how much residual is there, or where was it grown, or there's just so much that's missing that really is.
Right.
How do we bridge that gap? What's what's happening? You're doing a ton of education, and where do we find it?
Well, I think that, caveat emptor is the number one thing, and I mean, buyer beware. Okay. Look at what you're doing, look at what you're buying, and do your research, I guess. I think that there are reputable firms out there, and sometimes it's really hard to tell, right? Because you look on the website, everything seems to be perfect. And so there's a certain amount of trust that goes into it. Okay. And that's the way it is with all of our food. In fact, we have a certain amount of trust, and it's not like the US FDA or the USDA is doing such a extremely good job at testing everything. For example, there's still pesticides on our food that we eat and get from the supermarket. That's why you got to wash it, things like that. So I think, how do you do it? Well, from a scientist, what I'm doing is I'm trying to basically get out there and make sure that people are at least aware from the scientific standpoint. Anybody who comes to us for advice, obviously I have an angle, but at the end of the day, we're all on the same page in terms of reducing our environmental footprint and having more healthy products. And the less here's a factual thing: the less solvents you use, or the less butane you use, or the less ethanol you use, the better. I mean, it's better for you. It's better for your kids. It's better for the environment. It's better for all that stuff. So, that's how we've been approaching that market. Yeah.
Well, and I've seen so many times our industry threatened by, poorly made products that then impose risk. And so it's just, the less, like you said, the less additives we're putting on the plant, the better we are. And it makes sense. There was a question on here. Ryan was asking about, thoughts on zero pressure sonic wave extraction.
Oh boy, there we go. I'm for it. Love it. All right, Ryan, that's awesome. Zero pressure sonic wave. So I'm not sure exactly what that is, other than it looks like they're adding energy to it via some sort of sonic wave or some sort of energy to add some mechanical vibration or sonic vibration to it, and therefore improve mass transfer. Okay, and improve solubility. Okay. That's typically what they do. I have a whole series of podcasts on what is extraction. Basically you got two things. You have mass transfer and you have solubility. Okay, you have to have both of those things. Okay, so sonic wave stuff basically improves mass transfer, and that's essentially what it is. I think that a lot of people, there's a lot of technologies like we have, let's say we have maybe 10 or 15,000 professors. Okay, all they do, they have their own specific technology, and they will let's say that maybe 100 different extraction techniques per year are brought out, and any of those can be done. So the question is it scalable? Has it been used a lot before? Is it environmentally sustainable? Can you, there's a whole bunch of criteria there by which you would want to assess a technology. And then, is it cost effective? Things like that. So, when you think about a technology, you got to think about it. Not only can I do it on a 1 gram basis, but can I do it on a hundreds of kilo or 10,000 kilo basis? And maybe that's the case. I don't know, but I'm not exactly. I know I use the sonicator to sonicate things to clean them up. So I don't have the exact knowledge though on that particular technology.
Okay, well, good question, Ryan. Ryan's definitely.
Thanks, Ryan. You're awesome.
Ryan's been traveling around and seen a lot within the industry, so I'm excited more about that.
Yeah.
Well, good. So let's see what else. Talk to me about how people find you, or share if somebody's interested in connecting with you. How do people get in touch, or where do they find your podcasts?
Well, one of the things you can do is just go to our website, extraktLAB.com/resources. There's all kinds of resources on there. We have all of our podcasts on there. We have calculators. That's something that really people like about it. So you can put in, how many acres of crop you have, and it'll output how many, pounds or kilos of CBD you'll be able to get. Or, we have an isolate calculator that we also have. We have, let's see what else. There's also a cost calculator. That's one thing that we're very much so focused on is operating costs. Speaking of that, along with the, environmental aspect, wouldn't it be great if all the environmental things that you did were also very cost effective? Wouldn't that be great?
Doesn't that make sense? Well, and honestly, it's been, what I hear is as soon as you say environmental or sustainability, investors in the past are like, yeah, since when is environmental?
Yeah, that's going to cost me more money, right? Where's the tax credit?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason there's tax credits is because it doesn't really pencil out on paper in the real market. Okay, that's why you have to have tax credits. Well, one of the things that we've done a lot of education around, and also we have calculators on our website, is really comparing different cost offerings. So one thing with the CO2, it's about you use 18 times less energy, compared to say an ethanol. You use 125 less solvent, and that's a lot less in terms of solvent costs. You got 6 times less solvent startup costs as well, and 394 times less solvent reuse cost if you follow the FDA rules. 3 times less infrastructure costs. So at the end of the day, you're talking about orders of magnitude less operating costs compared to, say, like a condensed liquid extraction method, such as ethanol, for example. So it actually is one of those environmental technologies that really actually pays to use. A lot of people they kind of mix up and they say, well, it costs me more up front for the equipment. It's true. It does cost you more up front for the equipment. But you're getting a tremendous value in use. As you use it, it pays for itself. And in fact, it eclipses, because you have such a high operating cost on the example of the ethanol or the hexane side. Well, you say, oh, well, I can get the ethanol for cheap because I go down and I get it. Yeah, but that has heptane in it. It has all these what are considered to be food grade contaminants in it. Well, forget it. I mean, you can do that, but it still doesn't pencil out, because you're talking about a lot of money. You're talking about a lot of losses. You're talking about a huge environmental footprint. So on our website, on our resources page, we have calculators that will really be able to articulate, hey, here's the differences in cost over time. And you can even put in, what the different equipment costs you. You can show you, hey, this is something that will really pay dividends as you start to use it.
Man, I can't tell you how many extraction facilities we've seen go out of business because they didn't do it right the first time, right? And so I think really where we talk about is like, sure, it's less expensive. I see the same thing in textiles, right? And now the entire textile industry is struggling because the environmental impact that it's had, right? And so not start off on the right foot, do it right, so it saves you more on the long run.
Right.
3 years down the road, you're not starting completely over, like what you said just ends up cost double the money.
Right. Double the money, exactly.
So
yeah, and I'm also kind of a little bit taken aback. There's a lot of people who start a business and they don't really think about what the end is. Like, okay, I'm a scientist. I'm going to start an extraction business. Wonderful, because you know the science. Wonderful. Well, do you have a business plan? I mean, do you have people that are going to buy your product? You know what I mean? And there's some of that, little bit of entrepreneurial naivety, I think, and just also being caught up in it. Okay, get your products down. Make sure that you have a customer in mind. And enter the market according to a business plan. I also see that a lot of the people don't have a strategic plan. For example, what is a strategic plan? Well, it's something. It's a definition of what you're not going to do, right? Everybody's trying to do everything, right? Oh, I'm going to do fiber. I'm going to do herd, and then I'm going to make bedding, and I'm going to make CBD tinctures, and I'm going to do gummies, and then I'm going to do capsules, and I'm going to do clinical trials. Okay, all of that in one company. Well, good luck with that. That's about 3 different businesses, and you haven't strategically focused your business in on a particular market. You have no market strategy, so you really need to think about that. I do have. I'm doing a series right now, Dr. John's Startup School. And we have, for those of you who want to be entrepreneurs and want to really go and make something, I start off with going through, here's how you create your strategy. Here's how you do your pro forma. Here's how you do your cap table and your pitch plan, and then on into the actual pitch. So we go through all those things, and it's all free for you. It's just my opinions, of course, but I've done a few things. I've raised a lot of money, so
I think that's
what I'm talking about.
Awesome. So I would love to share that information through our people as well, because those are some of the questions that I would say our next step, especially with our association, is now we've gathered all of these connections and all of these people doing different pieces, right?
Right.
Somebody get into the industry. What is it that they need to ask? What's that entrepreneurial side?
Right.
And then with it builds opportunity for capital, right?
Exactly.
Once we get all of those baselines put together, it's very, very impactful.
Yeah, I did it because I was getting frustrated. First of all, there was a lot of people who were trying to get into the business who shouldn't have been in the business, who didn't get in, who shouldn't be there. So, I spend, when I do sales calls, I spend most of my time saying, okay, you don't want to do this, do this instead. Or this is not for you. Okay. You don't, this is not for you. I mean, I've said that a lot. I would say that 80% of my calls are kind of like that. Like, okay, this is not for you. Or you're trying to go too big. Like some guy, go big or go home. You've met those guys, right? Okay. Go big or go home. Well, how about a crawl, walk, run strategy? Okay, if you can crawl, then you could probably walk, but you're trying to run a marathon and you haven't trained for it and you're 40 pounds overweight. Okay, forget about it. You can't do it. You have to really focus yourself. So, we do have a startup school. Yeah, you can certainly share the stuff, no problem like that. Yeah. On a very limited basis, I do one-on-ones with people where I help them walk through their business plan. I have all the forms and all the cap tables and all the strategy and stuff. And I help, usually it's an hour, I have a, consulting service around that, getting people starting up, and it's a lot. We've done, doing one right now with mushrooms, for example, trying to get that set up, but if your company's not set up from the start with the right strategy, you're trying to do clinical and food and, products all at the same time, you're going to fail for sure. Those are markets. You have to have a good market strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was laughing just now when you were talking about the crawl, walk, run. I've got a friend that hasn't ran at all for a few years and went out the other day to sprint. And
oh yeah,
this is a perfect analogy.
Yes.
torn hamstring. And, and I was like, yeah, you're like the guys jumping in head first into this industry without any.
No, I had that. I had similar situation. My son and I said, okay, the first to 100 miles gets $100. Okay, so you put up for $100. Okay, so I'm doing my 5Ks every day, slow, right? And he goes out and runs 15 miles one day and then 15 miles the next. Okay, and I'm like, you almost ran 2 marathons. And he totally, his hamstrings were no good, his IT band was up, and so he might catch up to me, but I don't know. We'll see. So this is the classic tortoise and the hare going on. So I think I'm going to win that $100, to tell you the truth.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Cody, if you're listening, shout out to your hamstring. I hope it's feeling better today.
Yeah, Cody. It's good.
But are you going to be at the Southern Hemp Expo?
Probably not. No, I haven't. I've kind of been traveling around for other purposes, and so when is that? Are you headed out there?
I am. Yeah,
okay.
It's the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of September. So here in the next couple of weeks. But you do
a podcast from there, or what do you do?
I am. Yeah,
cool.
I'm going to do a whole bunch of interviews and live streaming. I'm going to help moderate a couple of panels. So shout out, if anybody's listening, sign up. There is a code GHA20 for 20% off your discount. So if you would like to get a discount there for tickets, I'd love to have you guys there. And Jon, if you do go, I'd love to connect with you for sure.
Sounds good. All right. Sounds good. Same here. So appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have just a few more minutes left, but I want to talk real quick about some of the global projects and global growth that you're seeing outside. Can you talk a little bit about some exciting things that are developing outside of the U.S. and who really is leading the charge on a global scale?
Well, obviously you have the multi-state operators are pretty much focused on their marijuana in the U.S. Okay, so they have a pretty good focus. I would say that leading the charge in terms of the actual money flowing is the Canadian operators. They have operations all over the place. I would say that they're kind of penetrated in there early, so the early bird gets the worm. But there's a lot of fast followers, I would say, and those are individual entrepreneurs, interestingly enough. What's nice about those international markets, the pricing pressure is not the same as in the U.S. So, like in Canada, CBD is considered a drug, right? So it's obviously has a higher price point. It probably that would never fly in the U.S. because people, think it's a right. Okay, it's my right to have the hemp plant, which I don't disagree with. Actually, it's just, it's just hemp. At the end of the day, I think I see some of those projects. I would say that we're working with maybe 50% large companies that are, say, global and publicly held. And then the other 50%, which are probably movers and shakers. Tobacco's getting into this in a big way. We're talking also, Coca-Cola, outside the U.S. And, I've dealt with some of their ex-executives. Okay. What that means is they have knowledge in how to get things into that they have specific knowledge. They have a market plan that's very, very laser focused on one thing, beverages. Okay. That's a great market plan, by the way. I'm going to be the number one health beverage manufacturer in sub-Sahara continent Africa. And I'm going to get 80% market share on a market that's growing at 20% compound annual growth rate. Wonderful strategy. That's great. Okay. Or I'm going to do health beverages everywhere, and I'm going to do gummies, and I'm going to do creams, and I'm going to do and I'm going to have retail stores. Okay, that's not a good strategy. Okay. So what I see then is basically this bifurcation of entrepreneurs who are typically well connected to some sort of larger industry, whether it's tobacco or not. And then you have the major players. There are, I think in Europe, there are several different places where there's lots of free money. Okay. Lots of free money. So for development purposes, and a lot of the companies there are individual entrepreneurs, very similar to the US, but they have very high aspirations because they have to be EU GMP, which is, expensive. Thailand and Southeast Asia area is also very hot right now, and Africa is growing. I think Eastern Europe is growing quite nicely. Central America always has been and has been very good for growth in the last maybe 10 years, 5 years or something like that. So Portugal, also the deal there is that within the EU, the laws are so radically different. Okay, am I going to do novel food? Am I going to do European medicines, which is botanical medicines, which is basically pharmaceutical? What are you going to do? We're doing a project right now in Switzerland, for example. They're doing EU GMP. They're going to do all clinical. So they're not going to do like the CBD route. So that's how that works.
Awesome. So where are you guys headed as a company? With
where are we headed? Oh my word!
Like where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years as this market really starts to develop?
Well, I think we're right now we have. I think we'll have more of an international presence than we have right now. I mean, we have a tremendous international presence from the standpoint of our marketing arm, and so we'll probably have probably 4 large demo and or research sites around the world. That's why I would say 3 or 4. We already have one in the U.S. that's quite large, and then we'll also branch out to botanicals, flavors and aromas, and seed oils and things like that to because it's what we do. So you might as well do that. And we're very much so focused on organic offerings for our customers. So look, if you can get rid of the pesticides, you should. Why not? I mean,
there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of people that chime in often saying, why is the hemp industry being pushed or have such a drive into this organic space? And I see it from so many different, even to the textile side. They want organically grown product, right? And then when we go back and look at it, like what's it doing to our earth and our planet? I think I said organically grown planet, but organically grown product and good for our planet. And what are you seeing there? I mean, obviously you're really driving the organic market and consumers are really pulling the organic.
I think that it's, people want to have the healthy living lifestyle or healthy lifestyle market on the consumer side is driving that. In the large compound annual growth rates, that's why people are saying, oh, hey, well, look, if I can put an organic sticker on my clothing, it's just you can do that. I don't know if it will make any difference. Okay. But what it does make it, here's if I were to articulate a reason why, the more organic you have, if it does come from fiber, the more organic land there is, the less chemicals that are going onto the earth, the better it is for the whole environment as a whole. So, I understand the whole idea behind organic, and that's why you'd want to have organic clothes, I guess. And I can kind of understand that. Oh, I have organic clothes. Of course, this is cotton fiber. Okay, of course it's organic. It's organic chemistry, right? But organic meaning, not pesticides, things like that. That's what you really. I mean, if we had a choice, chemicals or not chemicals, what would we choose?
Right.
The consumer always says no chemicals. So if they know, and you have a whole industry trying to basically say, oh, well, you don't want to do that because it's too expensive, or you don't want to do that because it's not, whatever. I think you definitely need to, I think that the consumer's waking up to that benefit. Yeah. Let me just put that.
Absolutely. Well, and it's exciting because it's where we really need the paradigm shift, right? We've got to shift back to, all of this. Okay, so
you got a dog there in the back.
I've got 2 that keep coming in and out, and this is my back door, of course. So they sit right at the door and whine.
They're so quiet. It's awesome.
Oh no! I'm just like, sit down, under my breath. You just can't hear me.
Yeah, there they are. Oh, they want to get in on the other side there. So
exactly. They're like, take me out.
What's the name of the dogs?
What?
What's the doggie's name?
Boston and Jerry. Boston,
Okay.
I've got he's an American Bulldog
Okay.
boxer mix. And then the other one's a lab. And the lab is a puppy. And I don't know what I was doing buying a puppy or getting into a puppy again, but here we are. Yes.
There it is.
And so,
all right.
But there have been a few shout outs or comments. Please come to North Carolina. So if you get out there, you'll have to. And Jared, you too, join us.
Sounds good. All right. Well, very good to talk to you. And again, go to our resources page. It's filled up with stuff. And then, of course, I do podcasts. You do podcasts. Happy to contribute any way I can, Mandy.
I sure appreciate you, Jon. Let's get in touch. I'll share more contact information. Jon, if I can make connections, I'd love to. Other than that, we'll catch you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Take care. Bye now.